Apparently, there's no corporate HR manual for what to do when your husband vanishes with the office floozy during the annual Christmas party, but there should definitely be a chapter on why accepting a motorcycle ride from your CEO might just be the smartest career move you never planned. I'm Scarlett Reeves, and last Friday night at Cortex Solutions Holiday Bash, I discovered that my 7-year marriage had about as much substance as the artificial snow they'd sprayed around the downtown Austin venue. Picture this. Me, 34 years old, standing in my best black cocktail dress next to a chocolate fountain that was getting more action than I'd seen in months, watching my husband Colton disappear into the December night with Paisley Henderson, our 26-year-old secretary who apparently moonlights as a homewrecker. You know that moment when your brain goes full Windows blue screen? That was me at 9:47 p.m., clutching a Cosmopolitan that had gone warm while I processed the fact that my husband of 7 years just ghosted me at our own company party. Not walked away for air. Not stepped outside for a phone call. Full-on vanished with another woman like some discount David Copperfield act. Except instead of making elephants disappear, he made my dignity evaporate in front of 83 co-workers. The beauty of corporate parties is how they turn grown adults into high school gossips faster than you can say, open bar. Within 15 minutes of Colton's Houdini impression, I had 3 different versions of what people witnessed. Version 1 claimed they saw him helping Paisley with her coat. Version 2 suggested she looked distressed and needed assistance. Version 3, courtesy of Janet from accounting, who'd clearly been sampling the spiked eggnog liberally, insisted they were practically making out by the valet stand. Standing there in my favorite Nordstrom dress, the one Colton bought me for our anniversary 6 months ago, probably while already planning his exit strategy, I had 2 choices. Become the tragic wife who calls an Uber while crying into her designer clutch, or figure out how to salvage what remained of my Friday night and professional reputation. That's when Knox Sullivan materialized beside me like some leather-jacketed guardian angel with questionable timing. Knox is what you'd call distinguished. 52 years old with silver hair that probably costs more to maintain than my monthly car payment, and the kind of confidence that comes from building a tech company from his garage into a $40 million enterprise. He's also got this habit of riding a Harley-Davidson to work, which everyone assumes is some midlife crisis thing but actually makes perfect sense when you consider Austin traffic. Rough night? He asked, nodding toward the exit where my husband had performed his disappearing act 23 minutes earlier. Not that I was counting. Oh, just your typical Friday evening where you discover your marriage has the longevity of a Snapchat story, I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. But hey, at least the chocolate fountain's still loyal. Knox actually laughed. Not the polite CEO chuckle he reserves for board meetings, but a genuine laugh that made several nearby conversations pause. You need a ride home? I've got the bike outside and something tells me you could use some fresh air. Now, under normal circumstances, accepting a motorcycle ride from your CEO while wearing a cocktail dress would rank somewhere between questionable judgment and career suicide on the professional decision-making scale. But these weren't normal circumstances. These were, my husband just pulled a vanishing act with the office secretary circumstances, which apparently operate under different rules. You know what? That actually sounds perfect, I heard myself saying. Because clearly, my evening can't get any weirder. Famous last words, right? The walk to Knox's Harley became its own entertainment as half the party crowd migrated toward the floor-to-ceiling windows to watch this unexpected development. I could practically hear the group chat notifications starting to ping across Austin as people scrambled to document whatever was about to unfold. Knox handed me a leather jacket. Keep it, I've got extras. And a helmet that smelled faintly of expensive cologne and adventure. Ever been on a bike before? Does the mechanical bull at Cowboys Red River count? Not even close. Just hold on tight and lean with me on the turns. Climbing onto the back of that Harley in my cocktail dress and heels felt like stepping into an alternate universe where Scarlett Reeves made spontaneous decisions and didn't spend 20 minutes analyzing the pros and cons of every choice. The engine rumbled to life beneath us, drowning out whatever commentary was surely flowing from the party windows above. As we pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of faces pressed against the glass. colleagues who'd probably spend their entire weekend crafting theories about what they'd just witnessed. Little did they know, they were about to get enough material for months of speculation. The ride through downtown Austin on a December night turned out to be exactly what I needed. Cold air sharp enough to clear my head, city lights blurring past like some kind of therapeutic light show, and the strange comfort of being in motion when everything else felt completely still. But here's what I didn't know during that 20-minute ride back to my suburban neighborhood. Knox Sullivan hadn't offered me a ride home out of sympathy. He had an agenda. And by Monday morning, the office gossip about the CEO's motorcycle ride would be the least of anyone's concerns. Because sometimes the most devastating discoveries come disguised as acts of kindness. And sometimes the best revenge starts with accepting help from the person who knows exactly what you're capable of, even when you don't. The weekend that followed what I now refer to as the Great Motorcycle Incident of December played out like some twisted social experiment designed to test the limits of human curiosity and the speed of digital communication in corporate America. Saturday morning arrived with my phone buzzing like an angry hornet trapped in a mason jar. Apparently, someone had captured photographic evidence of my dramatic exit from the Core-Tech holiday party, and the image was making rounds faster than a stomach bug at a daycare center. The picture showed me climbing onto Knox's Harley, leather jacket draped over my cocktail dress, looking like some bizarre fusion of boardroom executive and motorcycle mama. My sister Rachel called at 8:23 a.m. with her usual subtlety. "Holy moly, Scarlett. Mom just sent me a screenshot from Karen Williams. You know, her neighbor whose daughter works at that marketing firm downtown. Apparently you're Austin's newest corporate scandal. She wants to know if you've lost your mind or found your backbone." Good morning to you too, Rachel. And for the record, I'm still deciding between those two options. By Sunday afternoon, I'd received 17 text messages, 9 phone calls, and one particularly creative email from my college roommate in Portland, who'd somehow heard about my motorcycle rebellion phase through her cousin's LinkedIn network. The speed at which office gossip travels in the digital age could power a small city. But here's what made the weekend truly special. Radio silence from Colton. Not a single text, call, or even one of those passive-aggressive Instagram stories he's famous for. 48 hours of complete communication blackout, like he'd been abducted by aliens who specialized in removing inconvenient husbands from suburban marriages. Monday morning rolled around with all the subtlety of a freight train carrying judgment and speculation. I spent an extra 20 minutes on my makeup routine, because if you're going to be the center of office drama, you might as well look good while doing it. I chose my navy blue power suit, the one that makes me look like I could negotiate peace treaties or hostile takeovers with equal confidence. Walking into the Core-Tech building felt like entering a wildlife preserve where I was simultaneously the main attraction and the prey. The lobby conversations died faster than a Windows 95 computer, replaced by the kind of artificial busy work that happens when people pretend they weren't just dissecting your personal life with surgical precision. Jennifer from Human Resources practically sprinted to the elevator to catch me, wearing the expression of someone who'd been elected spokesperson for the collective curiosity of our entire floor. "Scarlett, how was your weekend?" she asked with the enthusiasm of a game show host. "I heard you and Knox had quite the adventure Friday night." "Oh, just your typical Friday evening motorcycle therapy session with the CEO. Very standard post-marital crisis transportation choice." The elevator ride to the 4th floor became its own form of entertainment as 3 more people squeezed in, clearly hoping to witness whatever conversation was about to unfold. By the time we reached our floor, I felt like a zoo animal during feeding time. My assistant Marcus greeted me with a coffee and the kind of knowing smirk that suggested he'd spent his weekend fielding phone calls about my personal life. "Your Monday morning just got interesting," he announced, sliding a stack of messages across my desk. "Apparently, half of Austin's marketing community wants to know if you're available for lunch meetings, and the other half wants to know if Knox Sullivan is single. Please tell me you're exaggerating." I wish I was. Also, Colton called the office line 3 times yesterday. I told him you were unavailable, which seemed like the diplomatic way to handle whatever drama he's trying to stir up. The morning progressed like some surreal comedy sketch where every interaction carried double meanings and hidden agendas. The water cooler conversations stopped abruptly when I approached. People found sudden reasons to walk past my office. Brian from IT actually pretended to be fascinated by the printer maintenance schedule just to eavesdrop on my phone calls. But the real entertainment started during the 10:30 a.m. staff meeting when Knox walked in wearing his usual Monday morning confidence and absolutely no acknowledgement that anything unusual had occurred. He conducted the meeting with his typical professional demeanor, discussing quarterly projections and client acquisitions like he hadn't spent Friday night giving his marketing manager a motorcycle ride through downtown Austin. The room's energy felt like a pressure cooker filled with unasked questions and unconfirmed theories. 23 pairs of eyes kept darting between Knox and me, searching for some sign of whatever relationship they'd imagined into existence based on one photograph and 72 hours of speculation. During the budget review portion, Paisley walked in looking like she'd spent the weekend at a spa retreat. Glowing skin, perfect hair, and the kind of satisfied expression that suggested her Friday night had gone considerably better than mine. She handed Knox a folder with a smile that lingered just long enough to fuel another week's worth of office gossip. That's when I noticed Knox watching me watch her, his expression unreadable, but definitely calculating. Something about the way he observed my reaction felt less like casual interest and more like evaluation, like he was measuring my response for some purpose I couldn't identify. The meeting concluded with Knox announcing a strategic restructuring initiative that would begin immediately, requiring enhanced security protocols and careful evaluation of all internal processes. Corporate speak that could mean anything from office supply audits to complete departmental overhauls. As everyone filed out, Knox caught my attention with a subtle nod toward his office. "Scarlett, could you spare a few minutes? I'd like to discuss some upcoming marketing initiatives." Walking toward Knox's corner office while 23 coworkers pretended not to watch felt like the longest hallway journey in professional history. Because somehow, I knew that whatever conversation was about to happen would make Friday night's motorcycle ride look like the opening act of a much larger and more complicated performance. And judging by the way Knox closed his office door and activated the white noise machine he typically reserved for confidential board discussions, I was about to discover that accepting that ride home had consequences I never could have imagined. Knox's office felt different with the door closed and the white noise machine humming, less like a casual workplace conversation and more like the opening scene of a corporate thriller I never auditioned for. He gestured toward the leather chair across from his desk, the same chair where I'd sat during my interview 3 years ago, back when my biggest concern was whether my marketing portfolio was impressive enough to land the job. "Coffee?" Knox asked, already pouring 2 cups from his personal espresso machine. "Something tells me you're going to need it." That sounds ominous enough to make me question every life choice that led me to this moment. He handed me the coffee with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Scarlett, what I'm about to tell you stays in this room until I say otherwise. Can you handle that level of confidentiality?" "Knox, after spending the weekend as Austin's most talked-about motorcycle passenger, I'm pretty sure I can handle whatever corporate drama you're about to drop on me." He settled into his chair with the deliberate movements of someone who'd been planning this conversation for longer than I realized. "Your husband has been selling our client acquisition strategies to Richardson Tech for the past 4 months. The words hit me like cold water. Except instead of waking me up, they made everything suddenly make sense in the most horrible way possible. Richardson Tech, our biggest competitor, the company that had been mysteriously landing clients we'd been courting for months, the same firm that seemed to anticipate our every marketing move like they had access to our internal planning sessions. Because they did. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed, though my brain was already connecting dots I'd been too trusting to see before. "You're telling me that while I've been working 60-hour weeks trying to figure out how Richardson keeps beating us to the punch, my own husband has been feeding them our strategies? Every Monday morning strategy meeting, every client presentation outline, every innovative campaign concept your team develops. Richardson Tech has been receiving detailed summaries within 48 hours. Knox opened a folder on his desk, revealing printed screenshots, email timestamps, and what appeared to be financial transaction records. "We've been monitoring suspicious activity since August. The pattern became undeniable by October." I stared at the evidence spread across Knox's mahogany desk. feeling like I was watching my marriage and career get dissected simultaneously. How long have you known it was Colton? 6 weeks ago, our IT security team traced the information leaked to his company laptop. He's been forwarding confidential files to a personal email account, then transferring them to Richardson through an encrypted messaging system. Knox leaned forward, his expression shifting from CEO to something more personal. Scarlett, he's been using Paisley as his courier. The coffee cup trembled in my hands as another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. All those late-night client dinners Colton claimed to attend. The weekend business trips that seemed to multiply over the past few months. The way Paisley always seemed to know about strategy changes before they were officially announced. She's been playing messenger between my husband and our biggest competitor, I said, the words tasting bitter even with the espresso. And I've been sitting in meetings, wondering why I felt like we were constantly playing catch-up in our own industry. Here's what makes this particularly interesting, Knox continued, sliding another document across the desk. Richardson Tech offered Colton a senior marketing position 3 weeks ago, double his current salary, full benefits, and a signing bonus that would make your monthly mortgage payment look like lunch money. My brain went into overdrive processing this information. He's been planning his exit strategy while sabotaging my department's success rate. Every failed pitch, every lost client, every campaign that mysteriously got scooped by Richardson, he's been setting me up to fail while positioning himself as the solution to their problems. Exactly. And Friday night's disappearing act? That was his resignation celebration. He submitted his 2 weeks' notice via email at 11:47 p.m., effective immediately due to personal circumstances requiring immediate relocation. The audacity was almost impressive in its completeness. Colton hadn't just cheated on our marriage. He'd orchestrated a systematic destruction of my professional reputation while building his own escape route. Every morning when I'd kissed him goodbye and wished him a good day at work, he'd been actively working to undermine everything I'd built at Cortec. Knox, why are you telling me this instead of just firing him and calling it a day? His expression shifted into something I'd never seen before. A combination of respect and calculation that made me realize this conversation had been planned long before Friday night's motorcycle ride. Because Richardson Tech doesn't know that we know. They're expecting Colton to start next Monday with a comprehensive breakdown of our Q1 marketing initiatives, including the Henderson manufacturing account we've been courting for 8 months. They're planning to submit a competing proposal on Thursday. I felt something cold and calculating settling in my chest, replacing the hurt and betrayal with something far more dangerous. Strategic thinking. You want to feed them false information. I want you to feed them false information. Through Colton. Through Paisley. Through whatever network they've established. Knox opened his desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder. This contains a complete marketing strategy for Henderson Manufacturing. It's detailed, comprehensive, and would absolutely secure the account for any company smart enough to implement it. And it's completely fake. Every timeline, every budget projection, every client preference profile, carefully constructed to lead Richardson Tech into the most expensive marketing disaster in Austin's corporate history. Knox's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Meanwhile, our real Henderson proposal gets submitted Friday morning with strategies they'll never see coming. The beautiful cruelty of the plan was starting to dawn on me. You're going to let them hang themselves with their own stolen information. We're going to let them hang themselves. Because this isn't just about stopping the leak, Scarlett. This is about demonstrating what happens when people underestimate both you and this company. I looked at the fake marketing strategy folder, then at the evidence of my husband's betrayal, then at Knox's expectant expression. 3 years of wondering why my campaigns weren't getting the recognition they deserved. 7 years of marriage to a man who'd been systematically undermining my career while pretending to support my success. What exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing that we give your husband exactly what he's been asking for. Complete access to our most sensitive marketing intelligence. And I'm proposing that you become the most trusted source of information Richardson Tech has ever had. The revenge possibilities were crystallizing in my mind like sugar turning to candy. Sweet, sharp, and potentially addictive. Knox, are you asking me to become a double agent in my own marriage? I'm asking you to take control of a situation where you've been played by people who assumed you were too trusting to fight back. He leaned back in his chair. The question is, are you ready to show them how wrong they were? Walking out of Knox's office that Monday afternoon felt like stepping into a completely different universe. One where Scarlett Reeves wasn't the trusting wife who packed her husband's lunch every morning, but rather a woman with a mission that would make Machiavelli proud. The fake Henderson manufacturing strategy folder felt like it weighed about 50 pounds of pure vindication in my briefcase. Tuesday morning, I implemented what I now call Operation Breadcrumb Trail. The beauty of feeding false information to someone who thinks you're clueless is that they never question why you're suddenly so careless with confidential documents. I left the fake strategy papers on my kitchen counter while making coffee, knowing Colton's habit of photographing anything that looked remotely business-related during his morning routine. "Big day today?" he asked, buttering his toast with the same casual tone he'd used for months while systematically destroying my career. "Oh, just the Henderson manufacturing presentation that could make or break our entire Q1 performance," I replied, deliberately sighing with stress. Knox has been breathing down everyone's neck about this one. Apparently, it's worth about $3 million in annual revenue. I watched Colton's eyes flick toward the papers I'd strategically positioned near the coffee maker. "Sounds intense. I'm sure you'll do great, honey." "Thanks, babe. I just hope Richardson Tech doesn't somehow get wind of our strategy." Knox mentioned they've been eerily competitive lately. The irony was so thick you could serve it at a diner. Within 2 hours of leaving for work, I received a text from Knox. "Package delivered. Our friend took photos at 7:43 a.m. Wednesday brought what I like to call the confirmation phase. Knox had installed monitoring software on Colton's company laptop that tracked every keystroke, every file transfer, every encrypted message sent to Richardson Tech. Watching the real-time feed of my husband actively betraying everything I'd worked for felt like watching a nature documentary about parasites, fascinating in its completeness, disgusting in its execution. The fake timeline shows Henderson Manufacturing wants to launch their campaign in March. Knox informed me during our afternoon budget meeting that was actually a war room briefing. Richardson Tech is scrambling to put together a proposal that accommodates that timeline. And the reality? Henderson wants to launch January 15th. Any proposal suggesting a March timeline will demonstrate complete ignorance of their business needs. Knox's smile was sharp enough to perform surgery. Richardson Tech is about to submit the most expensive misunderstanding in Austin marketing history. Thursday arrived with all the anticipation of Christmas morning. If Christmas involved watching your enemies walk blindly into professionally catastrophic situations, Richardson Tech submitted their Henderson manufacturing proposal at 2:47 p.m., complete with budget projections, timeline recommendations, and strategic initiatives that were perfectly crafted to demonstrate their complete misunderstanding of the client's actual requirements. Knox and I submitted our real proposal at 4:15 p.m. on Friday, a masterpiece of market research, client psychology, and strategic timing that made Richardson's effort look like a high school business class assignment. The following Monday brought consequences that exceeded even my most vindictive expectations. Henderson Manufacturing's CEO called Richardson Tech's proposal insulting in its ignorance of our company culture and completely disconnected from our actual needs. They specifically mentioned the March timeline suggestion as evidence that Richardson had clearly never bothered to understand our business model. But here's where the story gets really delicious. Richardson Tech's management realized they'd been fed false information, which meant someone had been playing them from the inside. The subsequent investigation revealed Colton's entire information-selling operation, complete with financial transactions, encrypted communications, and enough evidence to end his career in Austin's marketing community permanently. Richardson Tech fired Colton before he'd even completed his first day. Apparently, hiring someone who demonstrated a willingness to betray their previous employer raises questions about loyalty that even desperate companies prefer to avoid. They also rescinded their job offer to Paisley, who'd been promised a coordinator position as part of Colton's package deal. The Henderson Manufacturing account? Cortec landed it with a proposal so comprehensive that the client extended our contract to include their entire Southwest expansion initiative. $3 million in annual revenue became $8 million over 2 years. Knox called an all-hands meeting that Tuesday that will go down in Cortec history as the day everything changed. He announced the Henderson victory, praised the marketing department's innovative intelligence gathering methods, and revealed that corporate espionage attempts had been neutralized through strategic counterintelligence operations. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for without knowing I was waiting for it. Effective immediately, Scarlett Reeves is promoted to Vice President of Strategic Marketing, with oversight of all client acquisition initiatives and competitive intelligence operations. The conference room erupted in applause that felt like vindication, recognition, and revenge all wrapped into one perfect moment. Jennifer from HR looked like she'd witnessed a miracle. Marcus gave me a thumbs up that suggested he'd been in on more than he'd let on. Even Paisley, who was clearing out her desk that afternoon, managed a grudging nod of respect. But the real satisfaction came Wednesday evening when Colton showed up at our house to collect his belongings. He found me in the kitchen, wearing my new VP badge and reading termination letters from both Richardson Tech and Cortec's legal department. "Scarlett, I can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can. But here's the thing, Colton. I already know everything. The information selling, the fake client dinners, the promotion you thought you'd secured by sabotaging my career." I held up the legal documents. "I also know that Richardson Tech is considering a lawsuit against you for fraudulent misrepresentation and that your new career prospects in Austin marketing are about as promising as a snowball convention in July." He stared at me like he was seeing a completely different person, which was accurate because the trusting wife who'd packed his lunches had been replaced by someone who'd learned to play chess while he was still thinking checkers was complicated. "How did you figure it out?" "Turns out when you stop underestimating people, they stop letting you get away with treating them like they're stupid." 6 months later, I'm sitting in my corner office. Yes, corner office, complete with Austin skyline views and a coffee machine that doesn't require feeding quarters, reflecting on how one motorcycle ride can completely restructure your understanding of corporate loyalty, marital trust, and the fine art of strategic revenge. The VP title came with perks I hadn't anticipated. A salary that makes my old mortgage payments feel like pocket change, a parking spot with my name on it, and the kind of professional respect that apparently requires destroying your husband's career to achieve. The irony isn't lost on me that I had to become a corporate spy to finally get recognized for my actual marketing abilities. Colton's current situation reads like a cautionary tale they should teach in business ethics classes. After Richardson Tech fired him and word spread through Austin's surprisingly small marketing community, he discovered that betraying your employer while stealing from your wife creates the kind of professional reputation that makes McDonald's management trainee positions look competitive. Last I heard, he'd moved back to Dallas to live with his mother while pursuing what he calls entrepreneurial opportunities, and what LinkedIn shows as unemployed since February. The divorce proceedings were refreshingly straightforward once Knox provided the evidence of corporate espionage that had been conducted using marital assets, specifically our home internet connection and the laptop I'd helped him pay for. Turns out judges take a dim view of husbands who use community property to commit industrial sabotage against their wives' employers. I kept the house, the car, and most importantly, my dignity. Paisley landed on her feet with typical secretary-turned-accomplice resilience. She's currently working at a boutique marketing firm in Round Rock, though word through the professional grapevine suggests her new employer has some very specific policies about confidentiality agreements and information security. Apparently, my little corporate espionage adventure served as an industry-wide wake-up call about the dangers of underestimating support staff access to sensitive information. Knox and I maintained a strictly professional relationship that somehow became the foundation for the most effective marketing partnership Cortec has ever seen. The Henderson manufacturing success led to 3 more major acquisitions, 2 industry awards, and a company culture where strategic thinking gets rewarded instead of dismissed. Knox still rides his Harley to work, though now it's parked next to my BMW in the executive section of the parking garage. The office gossip machine eventually moved on to other scandals, specifically the accountant from the 3rd floor who got caught embezzling money to fund his cryptocurrency addiction. But occasionally, new employees still ask about the motorcycle incident, And I've learned to lean into the legend rather than explain the reality. Let them think their VP is the kind of woman who makes impulsive decisions involving leather jackets and Harley Davidsons. It keeps people on their toes. The most valuable lesson from this entire experience isn't about revenge, though the revenge was admittedly satisfying in ways that rival winning the lottery while your ex-husband watches from the unemployment line. The real revelation was discovering that being underestimated is only a disadvantage if you accept other people's assessment of your capabilities. For 7 years, I let Colton convince me that my professional struggles were due to market conditions, bad timing, or insufficient experience. I accepted his explanations for why my campaigns weren't succeeding, why clients weren't responding, why I couldn't seem to gain traction despite working harder than anyone else in the department. I trusted his analysis of my career challenges because I trusted him, period. Turns out, the person closest to you can be the biggest obstacle to your success, especially when they benefit from keeping you small. Colton needed me to fail professionally so he could feel successful personally. My struggles validated his worldview where he was the competent partner, and I was the one who needed guidance, support, and careful management of my expectations. The motorcycle ride that started this whole adventure wasn't really about transportation or Knox's sympathy for my marital drama. It was about one successful person recognizing potential in another and deciding to bet on that potential instead of accepting the narrative that everyone else had bought into. These days, I tell people that the best revenge isn't living well. It's living so well that your enemies have to watch you succeed using the exact same talents they convinced you didn't exist. Success tastes sweetest when it's seasoned with the tears of people who underestimated you. And if someone ever offers you a motorcycle ride after your husband disappears with his secretary, take it. You never know where it might lead, but I guarantee it'll be more interesting than crying into your Cosmopolitan while everyone else gets to write your story for you. After all, the best plot twists happen when you stop being a supporting character in your own life and start writing yourself as the hero who was there all along. Ever notice how the worst moments of your life always happen at red lights? There I was. Thursday afternoon, 3rd Street and Morrison. Stuck behind a Tesla so shiny it looked like it had never seen Portland rain. The light turned green. Nothing. I waited. Still nothing. So I did what any impatient Portlander does. I honked. The driver turned around. My husband turned around. Calvin. My Calvin. The man who'd kissed me goodbye that morning with "long day at the office, babe," turned around in a $100,000 car I'd never seen before. And next to him, a woman. Not just any woman. A very visibly, unmistakably pregnant woman with copper red hair and a hand resting on a belly that looked ready to pop. Our eyes locked through 2 car windows and approximately 9 years of marriage. His face went from annoyed to confused to absolutely terrified in about 2 seconds flat. It was like watching someone's soul leave their body in real time, except his soul was apparently living a whole separate life in the Pearl District. The pregnant woman looked at him, then at me, then back at him. You could see the gears turning. Badly. I'm Bethany Mitchell, by the way. 36, high school art teacher, professional overthinker, and, as of 3 minutes ago, the idiot who thought her marriage was solid just because her husband said, "I love you," every morning before his commute. Turns out his commute included a detour through an entire secret relationship. Who knew? Calvin Parker, 39, civil engineer, the man who once spent 45 minutes explaining the structural integrity of the St. John's Bridge during our 3rd date, the man who color-coded our shared calendar, the man who was currently having what I can only describe as a full-body panic attack in the middle of downtown traffic. He got out of the car. Actually got out. Like that was going to help. Bethany, save it. I put my Subaru in park right there in the middle of the street. Cars honked behind me. I didn't care. Who is she? The redhead. Bless her heart, she actually got out too. Looked between us like she'd walked into the wrong movie theater. Calvin? What's happening? Who is this? Who is this? I laughed. Actually laughed. Honey, I'm the wife. Been the wife for 9 years. 7 dating, 2 married, 1 apartment, 1 house, 1 joint checking account, And apparently 0 functioning brain cells because I never saw this coming. She went pale. Calvin went paler. Bethany, please, let me explain. He stepped closer. I stepped back. Explain what? That she's your Uber driver? Your sister? Your very pregnant coworker who you just happened to be driving around in a car I've never seen before? It's complicated. Complicated. The redhead cut him off, her voice rising. Complicated. Calvin, you said you were going to tell her today. You promised me you'd tell her about us, about the baby, about... She stopped, looked at me. Wait, you didn't know? He didn't tell you? And there it was. The moment when 2 women realize they've been played by the same man in completely different games. I looked at her belly, looked at Calvin, did the math. How long? Bethany. How long? The redhead answered. A year. We've been together a year. The baby's due in 6 weeks. She turned to Calvin, her face crumpling. You said you were getting divorced. You said she knew. You said, a year? I felt my voice crack. Pulled it back. I would not cry in the middle of 3rd Street like some Lifetime movie reject. You've been lying to me for a year? Traffic was backing up. Someone yelled at us to move. I ignored them. Calvin tried again. Beth, please, can we go somewhere and talk about this like adults? Like adults? I laughed again. Couldn't stop laughing. You're having a baby with another woman and you want to have an adult conversation? Sure. Here's an adult conversation. Get in your fancy car, take your pregnant girlfriend, and drive straight home. Our home. The one with both our names on the mortgage. You've got exactly 5 minutes head start before I get there. Beth, or... I pulled out my phone. I call your boss right now and ask him about the corporate credit card you've been using to pay for that Tesla. Because that's a company car, isn't it? Model S? Executive lease program? The one you said you couldn't get approved for? His face confirmed everything. The redhead gasped. Company card. You said you bought it. You said, 5 minutes, Calvin. Clock's ticking. I got back in my car, hands shaking so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. I watched him in my rearview mirror, standing between his 2 cars, his 2 lives, looking like a man who'd just realized he'd been playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers, and losing. The drive home took 12 minutes. Felt like 12 hours. My brain was doing that thing where it replays every moment of your relationship looking for clues. The late nights, the conferences in Seattle, the new cologne, the way he'd stopped reaching for me in bed 6 months ago, the separate checking account he'd opened for business expenses. I'd been so stupid, so willfully, blissfully stupid. Our house in the Beaumont neighborhood looked exactly the same as when I'd left that morning. Craftsman style, blue paint, white trim, window boxes I'd planted with pansies last spring. Picture perfect, magazine worthy, built on lies. Calvin pulled up 2 minutes after me. Alone. Where is she? I asked as he walked up the driveway. I told her to go home. Home to where? The apartment you're paying for? The one that comes out of our money? He stopped walking. How did I know? Calvin, I'm not an idiot. I just played one for the last year. I unlocked the door. Get inside. We're going to have that adult conversation now. And you're going to tell me everything, every single thing. Or I swear to God, I will burn your entire life to the ground. He followed me inside, and I could see it in his eyes. He was calculating, wondering how much I knew, how much I'd guessed, how much he could still spin. He had no idea I was about to become his worst nightmare. Because here's the thing about art teachers. We notice details. We see patterns. We understand composition. And right now, I was looking at the complete picture of my marriage for the first time. And I was about to deconstruct it, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but the truth. You know what's funny about confronting your cheating husband? The sheer audacity of watching him try to manage the narrative while sitting on your couch, the one you picked out together at IKEA on a Sunday afternoon 2 years ago. Calvin sat across from me in our living room, looking like a defendant at trial, which, essentially, he was. Start talking, I said, pouring myself a glass of wine. Didn't offer him any. And, Calvin? Don't insult my intelligence more than you already have. He ran his hands through his hair. Classic Calvin stall tactic. Her name is Sienna. We met at a company mixer last February. February. I did the math. So you've been lying to me for 13 months, not 12. Great. Love the precision. Beth, keep going. He shifted uncomfortably. It just happened. We started talking. She was new to Portland, didn't know anyone. Oh, poor thing. Must have been so hard being young and alone in the big city. Good thing she found a married man to show her around. I took a sip of wine. What is she, 25? 28. 28. Fantastic. 8 years younger than me, which in guy math makes her basically a different species. I leaned back. So you met in February, started sleeping with her when? Do we have to? When, Calvin? March. Late March. I laughed. Actually laughed. Late March? That's right after our anniversary weekend in Cannon Beach. The one where you told me I was the love of your life. The one where we talked about maybe starting a family. I set down my glass before I threw it. Guess you decided to start one without me. His face flushed. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Paint me a picture. Use details. You're good at details, right? You managed to hide an entire relationship and a pregnancy for over a year. I never meant for this to happen. Nobody ever means for it to happen, Calvin. But somehow your pants ended up on her bedroom floor repeatedly for 13 months. Somehow you managed to coordinate schedules, rent an apartment, lease a Tesla, and knock her up. That's not accident. That's commitment. More commitment than you've shown our marriage in 2 years. He flinched. Good. The apartment, I continued. Pearl District. How much? $2,800 a month. $2,800. And you paid how? Silence. Calvin, we're going to play a fun game called I Already Know the Answer. How did you pay? Our savings account and some of the money your mom left you. The room went cold. My mother's money? The inheritance she left me 6 months before she died? The money she saved her entire life working double shifts as a nurse? That money? I was going to pay it back. With what? I stood up. Had to move. Had to do something with the rage building in my chest. You make $78,000 a year. You're paying $2,800 for her apartment. You leased a Tesla, and you think you were going to pay back $40,000. Were you planning to rob a bank or just continue stealing from me? It wasn't stealing. It's my money, Calvin. Money my dead mother left me. And you spent it on your pregnant girlfriend's rent. I paced. What else? What else did you spend our money on? He looked at the floor. Furniture for her place. Some clothes. Her doctor's appointments. The insurance company wouldn't cover her until... Stop. I held up my hand. You bought furniture? Played house? While I was here teaching teenagers about color theory and coming home to meal prep and asking about your day? You were always so busy with school. Don't you dare. I pointed at him. Don't you dare make this about me being busy. I was busy building a life. Our life. While you were apparently building a completely different one across town. The doorbell rang. We both froze. Expecting someone? I asked sweetly. Calvin's face went white. Beth, don't... I opened the door. Sienna stood there, mascara-streaked face, enormous belly, looking like a Pinterest board for pregnant and dramatic. Is he here? She demanded. He won't answer my calls. Oh, he's here. Come on in. Join the party. I stepped aside. She waddled in. And I know that sounds mean, but she literally waddled, and stopped when she saw Calvin. You left me at the intersection. I had to call an Uber. You can afford an Uber but not your own apartment? I asked conversationally. Interesting financial priorities. She turned to me, eyes blazing. This is your fault. If you'd just let him go. Let him go? I laughed. Honey, I didn't know I was supposed to be holding on. Last I checked, we were married. Which typically implies a certain level of commitment, but clearly I missed the memo about the open relationship policy. He doesn't love you anymore. Oh, is that what he told you? I looked at Calvin. Is that the story? Big bad wife doesn't understand you? Relationship dead for years? Let me guess. We haven't been intimate in months. We're basically roommates. You were planning to leave anyway? His silence was confirmation. Here's what actually happened in our marriage, Sienna. May I call you Sienna? We had dinner together every night this week. Sunday, he made his mom's pot roast recipe. Monday, we watched that cooking show you love, Calvin. Well, that I thought you loved. Tuesday, we talked about refinancing the house. Wednesday morning, he told me I looked beautiful. Yesterday, literally yesterday, he texted me, "Can't wait to come home to you," with a heart emoji. I pulled out my phone, showed her the message. Her face crumpled. So either my husband is an Oscar-worthy actor, I continued, or he's a lying, manipulative, selfish coward who wanted two lives and thought he was smart enough to maintain both. Which do you think it is? The baby is his. I don't doubt it. The baby is absolutely his. You know what else is his? This house, this mortgage, this legal marriage, and about $40,000 he owes me. 40,000! She turned to Calvin. You said you had savings. You said after the baby came, we'd get a house. With what money? I asked. He's been spending mine. Our joint account is down to $1,800. I checked this afternoon. His 401k has a loan against it. And that Tesla? Company lease that he's not supposed to use for personal driving. Which means every mile to your apartment is technically fraud. Sienna looked like I'd slapped her. You said, you promised. He promises a lot of things, I said. Question is, which promises is he actually keeping? She started crying. Ugly crying. The kind where your whole face gets blotchy. Calvin finally found his voice. Sienna, go home. Beth and I need to talk. Home? She spun on him. What home? The apartment you said was ours? The one you're apparently stealing money to pay for? It's complicated. Stop saying that, she screamed. Everyone keeps saying it's complicated. It's not complicated. You either love her or you love me. You either want this baby or you don't. Which is it? The silence stretched. Calvin looked between us like a man watching his life split into two bad options. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you. Beth, get out. Take your pregnant girlfriend, take your lies, and get out of my house. I walked to the door, opened it. You've got until Sunday to figure out where you're living. Because it's not here. Sienna left first, sobbing into her phone, calling someone for a ride. Calvin lingered. We need to talk about this. Sunday, Calvin. Lawyer's office. I'll text you the address. I looked at him. Really looked at him. You know what the saddest part is? I would have forgiven an affair. People make mistakes. But you built an entire alternate life. You stole from me. You lied every single day for over a year. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And I will never forgive you for choosing her over basic human decency. He opened his mouth, closed it, left. I locked the door behind him, poured another glass of wine, and sat in the sudden silence of my house. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. Time to see exactly how deep this hole went. Here's what they don't tell you about betrayal. It turns you into a detective. And I was about to get my honorary badge. Friday morning. Calvin hadn't come home. Good. I'd spent the entire night doing what any self-respecting woman would do. Going through every file, every document, every digital footprint of our marriage like I was preparing for the bar exam. By 3 a.m., I'd found the first crack in his story. By 5 a.m., I'd found the whole crumbling foundation. The company credit card he'd used for the Tesla? Not just the Tesla. Restaurants I'd never been to. Hotels in Seattle, San Francisco, even one weekend in Napa Valley, during a conference he'd told me about. The conference was real. The attendance was not. I found the actual attendee list online. Calvin Parker? Nowhere on it. But here's where it got interesting. I logged into our joint bank account, the one he thought I never checked because he handled the finances. Turned out Calvin had been transferring money to a second account, an account I didn't know existed, in small increments. 500 here, 800 there. Never enough to trigger my attention, but over 13 months? Almost $60,000. $60,000 missing from our marriage. I sat back, coffee cup shaking in my hands. This wasn't just an affair. This was premeditated financial infidelity. This was a man planning an exit strategy while kissing me goodnight. My phone buzzed. Text from my best friend, Marnie. Coffee? You sounded insane last night. I'd called her at midnight, rage-crying about Calvin. She'd listened to the whole story without interrupting once. A superpower only best friends possess. We met at our usual spot, Powell's Coffee on Hawthorne. Marnie took one look at me and ordered a double espresso. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. "I haven't. I've been busy becoming a forensic accountant." I showed her my phone, screenshots of every transaction, every transfer, every lie documented in neat little rows. Her eyes widened. "Beth, this is actually criminal." "Oh, it gets better." I pulled out a folder. Yes, I'd printed documents. I'm an art teacher. We love folders. Remember how he said Sienna's apartment was $2,800 a month? The one he's paying for with your mom's money? That one. Guess what I found? I slid a document across the table. Lease agreement. Guess whose name is on it? Marnie read it. Her jaw dropped. Both of them? Calvin and Sienna? Joint lease. Which means he's not just paying her rent. They're legally co-tenants. Which means when I divorce him, that apartment is a marital asset used for adultery. I smiled. Actually smiled. In Oregon, that matters. You talked to a lawyer already? Called one at 6 a.m., emergency consultation. Turns out my high school friend Rachel is now a divorce attorney. Who knew? I sipped my coffee. She's reviewing everything this afternoon. But here's the best part. You ready? There's more? The Tesla. The fancy Model S he's been driving around? It's a corporate lease, which means he's supposed to keep mileage logs. Company policy. For taxes. I pulled out another document. I called his office, said I was with the accounting department doing an audit. Very friendly, very helpful. You didn't. I did. And guess what? His reported mileage doesn't match his actual mileage. Not even close. He's been logging trips to client sites that were actually trips to Sienna's apartment. That's fraud. Tax fraud. The kind that gets you fired and possibly investigated by the IRS. Marnie stared at me. Who are you, and what did you do with my friend who cried during Toy Story 3? That friend died Thursday at 2:47 p.m. at a red light on 3rd Street. This is her evil twin. I leaned forward. I'm not just divorcing him, Marnie. I'm dismantling him, legally, thoroughly, and with extreme prejudice. Remind me never to cross you. Too late. You already borrowed my favorite sweater and returned it with a stain. She laughed despite herself. So, what's the plan? I pulled out my phone, opened notes. I'd titled it, Operation Phoenix, because I was about to rise from these ashes, and Calvin was about to burn. Phase 1. Document everything. Already done. I've got bank statements, credit card bills, text messages I recovered from our shared iPad. Yes, he forgot to turn off syncing. And about 40 photos of him and Sienna from her Instagram that she posted before making it private. Her Instagram is public? Was. I screenshot everything before she locked it down, including the post from 6 months ago where she's wearing my grandmother's necklace, the one Calvin said he lost. Marnie gasped. He gave her your grandmother's necklace? Yep, that's theft. I have documentation proving it was mine. Rachel says I can file a police report. I scrolled down. Phase 2. Secure assets. I already transferred half of our joint account into my personal account this morning. Legal in Oregon during separation. Changed the locks on the house. Also legal since my name's on the deed too. You changed the locks? 7 a.m. Locksmith named Tony. Very efficient. Gave me a discount when I told him why. I continued. I also called our mortgage company, put a freeze on any refinancing attempts without my signature. Called our insurance company, removed him from my car insurance. Called our credit card company, reported his card as lost. It'll take him 3 weeks to get a new one. You're terrifying. I'm thorough. There's a difference. I took a breath. Phase 3. Let him implode. This is the fun part. I'm not going to chase him. I'm not going to beg. I'm going to let him sit in that apartment with Sienna and their upcoming baby and their complete lack of financial planning, and I'm going to watch reality hit him like a freight train. How long until the baby comes? 6 weeks. Maybe less. First babies can be early. I smiled grimly. Which means in 6 weeks he's going to be responsible for a newborn, a girlfriend who just realized he's broke, and a wife who's about to take him for everything he's worth. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. We need to talk. It's Sienna. I showed Marnie. Do not respond, she said immediately. Oh, I'm responding. I typed quickly. Calvin's attorney can contact my attorney. Otherwise, we have nothing to discuss. You don't have an attorney yet. She doesn't know that. And I will by Monday. I hit send. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Please. I'm pregnant and scared. He's not answering my calls. I don't know what to do. I felt a tiny pang of sympathy. Tiny. Then I remembered her waddling into my house calling this my fault. Not my problem. You made your choices. Live with them. I blocked the number. Marnie whistled low. Ice cold. She's 28. She slept with a married man. She knew he was married. I guarantee he wore his ring around the office. She doesn't get to play victim now that it's inconvenient. I finished my coffee. Besides, I have bigger things to worry about. Like what? Like the fact that I found an email from Calvin to his boss from 3 months ago requesting a transfer to the San Francisco office. Marnie's eyes went huge. San Francisco? San Francisco. He was planning to move. With Sienna, the baby. All of it. Just leave. Probably would have hit me with divorce papers after he was already gone. I pulled up the email on my phone. He wrote, and I quote, My wife and I have discussed relocating for better opportunities. Except we never discussed it, because there is no my wife and I in his plan. There's just him and her. That's sociopathic. That's Calvin. I stood up, gathering my folders. But here's what he didn't count on. I'm not some passive character in his story. I'm not going to make this easy. I'm not going to cry and beg and wonder what I did wrong. I know what I did wrong. I trusted him. And now I'm going to make him wish he'd just been honest. What's phase 4? I smiled. Actually smiled. For the first time since Thursday, it felt genuine. Phase 4 is where I win, and he loses everything. That afternoon, I met with Rachel at her office downtown. She reviewed everything I'd brought, and I'd brought everything. Bethany, she said after an hour of reading, this is one of the most documented cases of marital misconduct I've seen. You could teach a class. Art teacher skills. We're big on evidence and documentation. She laughed. With what you've got here, the financial infidelity, the misuse of marital assets, the tax fraud with the company car, you're not just getting a divorce, you're getting the house, full repayment of your inheritance, and probably alimony. I don't want alimony. I want justice. In divorce court, they're the same thing. She leaned forward. Here's my recommendation. File Monday. Fast and hard. Request immediate temporary orders freezing all assets. With the evidence you have, we'll get it. Then we sit back and let him panic. What about Sienna? What about her? She's not your problem. She's his. Rachel smiled. And when that baby comes and he realizes he can't afford diapers because you've frozen his accounts and he's paying back your inheritance, that's when the real show starts. I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt in 2 days. Powerful. Calvin thought he was so smart. Thought he'd managed everything perfectly. He had no idea I was 10 steps ahead. And the best part? I was just getting started. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say it's best served with legal documentation and a smile. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, Rachel filed the divorce papers. By 9:30, Calvin had been served at his office. By 10, my phone was blowing up. I let it ring. I was in the middle of teaching a class on Renaissance art. Priorities. By lunch, I had 17 missed calls and one very long, very panicked voicemail. Beth, what the hell? You froze our accounts. I can't access anything. My cards aren't working. Call me back right now. I deleted it. Took a bite of my sandwich. Turkey and avocado from the deli down the street. Delicious. Marnie texted, Did you do it? Filed this morning. He's currently having a meltdown. I love this for you. So did I. The temporary orders hearing happened Wednesday, 5 days after I'd caught him. Calvin showed up looking like he'd aged a decade. No Tesla. Apparently the company had already repossessed it after I'd sent them an anonymous tip about the mileage fraud. He drove up in Sienna's beat-up Honda Civic. Poetic. Rachel was brilliant. She presented our case like she was prosecuting a criminal. Bank statements showing the missing $60,000, the forged signatures on the account transfers. Yes, forged. He'd signed my name twice. The lease agreement for Sienna's apartment using marital funds, and my personal favorite, the recovered text messages where he told Sienna he was handling the wife situation. The wife situation. That's what I'd become. A situation to be handled. The judge was not amused. "Mr. Parker," Judge Morrison said, peering over her glasses, "you've misappropriated marital funds, committed fraud on financial documents, and engaged in what appears to be systematic deception. Do you have anything to say?" Calvin's lawyer, a guy who looked fresh out of law school and utterly overwhelmed, tried to argue that I'd known about the affair and was just being vindictive. Rachel shut that down immediately. "Your Honor, my client discovered the affair 6 days ago when she literally ran into her husband and his pregnant mistress at a traffic light. She had zero knowledge before then. The evidence supports this. Judge Morrison granted everything we asked for. Temporary full ownership of the house, full access to all accounts, immediate repayment plan for the stolen inheritance, and, the kicker, spousal support during the divorce proceedings. Calvin would be paying me $2,000 a month until this was finalized." His face went gray. "But, Your Honor," his lawyer stammered, "my client has a baby on the way." "Should have thought about that before committing fraud," Judge Morrison said dryly. "Next case." We walked out of that courthouse and I felt 10 feet tall. "That was beautiful," I told Rachel. "That was easy. He gift-wrapped this case for us." She grinned. "Wait until the IRS gets involved with those tax returns." "You reported him?" "I'm obligated to report suspected fraud. It's the law." She winked. "Funny how that works." The real fireworks started 3 weeks later. Sienna went into labor. Exactly 3 weeks early, right on schedule with what the doctors had been warning about high-stress pregnancies. I know because Calvin called me at 2 a.m., desperate. "Beth, please, I need money. The hospital needs a deposit. Insurance isn't covering everything. I don't have—" "You have $2,000 you owe me this month. Use that." "That's for rent. Sienna's landlord is threatening to evict us." "Landlord? I thought you were on the lease?" Silence. Then, "She couldn't afford it after you ran out of my money to spend on her?" I sat up in bed. "Calvin, you made choices. Multiple choices. Over 13 months of choices. Now you get to live with them. I'm begging you. Remember when I begged you to be honest with me? When I asked you in February if everything was okay, and you said you were just stressed about work? When I asked in June if we were good, and you kissed me and said you'd never been happier?" My voice went cold. I begged too. Difference is, I deserved answers. You deserve exactly what you're getting. I hung up. Marnie, who was sleeping over for moral support and wine, looked at me from the guest bed. Harsh. Necessary. I lay back down. He's got a corporate job and a college degree. He'll figure it out. I did. The baby came at 6 a.m. A girl. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. I know because Sienna's sister posted about it on Facebook, and I may have been doing some light social media stalking, for research purposes. By noon, Sienna had posted a photo, her looking exhausted, Calvin looking terrified, and a tiny baby with a tuft of dark hair. The caption, "Welcome to the world, Melody Harper Parker." Daddy's little surprise. I stared at that photo for a long time, felt nothing. Maybe a little pity for the baby who didn't ask for any of this. But Calvin? I felt absolutely nothing. My phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. "You sitting down? Calvin's company fired him. Effective immediately." I sat down. "What?" "Tax fraud investigation. They suspended him pending review 2 weeks ago. Remember when they took the Tesla? Well, the review finished. They found irregularities dating back 18 months. He's done." I called her immediately. "He's unemployed?" "As of this morning, which means he can't pay spousal support." "Oh, he still has to. Court order. He'll just have to figure it out." She paused. "Beth, this is falling apart faster than I expected. His lawyer called me today trying to negotiate a settlement." "What kind of settlement?" "He'll give you the house, repay the inheritance over 5 years, and agree to the divorce if you waive spousal support going forward." I thought about it. Calvin, jobless, with a newborn, and a girlfriend who was probably realizing what she'd actually signed up for. Tell him I'll think about it, I said. Give me a week. I didn't need a week. I needed 3 days. 3 days to watch Calvin's life completely unravel on social media. Because, yes, Sienna was one of those people who posted everything. Day 1 post, overwhelmed but blessed. Being a new mom is hard. Day 2 post. When you realize babies are expensive and your partner lost his job the day after she was born. Prayers needed. Day 3. Post. Just a photo of her crying with the caption, I can't do this. That's when Sienna's mother got involved. I know because she called me. Actually called me. Someone must have given her my number. Ms. Mitchell? This is Linda Vaughn, Sienna's mother. What can I do for you? I'm calling to apologize for my daughter, for this whole mess. She sounded tired. I didn't know Calvin was married when they started dating. She told me he was separated, going through a divorce. I would never have encouraged. Mrs. Vaughn, I appreciate the call, but your daughter is an adult. She made her choices. I know she did. But that baby is innocent. And right now they're staying in my spare bedroom because they can't afford rent. And Calvin can't find work because of some investigation. And Sienna won't stop crying. Her voice cracked. I'm asking mother to mother. I'm not a mother. But you could have been. Should have been. And I'm sorry my daughter helped take that from you. She took a breath. I'm asking you, woman to woman, is there any way to end this? Some kind of settlement? Calvin's lawyer says you're owed money and we'll pay it. My husband and I will take a loan if we have to. Just, please, that baby needs stability. I closed my eyes, thought about Melody, tiny, innocent Melody who'd done nothing wrong. Thought about Calvin, who'd done everything wrong. I'll settle, I said finally. But here are my terms. Full ownership of the house, immediately. Full repayment of the $60,000 he stole, $45,000 now, the rest over 2 years with interest, and he signs the divorce papers with no contest. Done. Thank you. I'm not finished. He also writes a letter. Not to me, to keep for Melody, explaining what he did, every detail, why he lied, how he stole, all of it. So when she's old enough, she knows the truth about how she came into this world. Silence. That seems cruel. That seems like accountability. He doesn't get to rewrite this story in 20 years and play the victim. Truth matters. Even uncomfortable truth. I softened slightly. Mrs. Vaughn, I don't blame Melody. I don't even really blame Sienna. Calvin lied to both of us. But he needs to own what he did. Completely. I'll make sure he does. Then we have a deal. The settlement was finalized 3 weeks later. I signed papers in Rachel's office while Calvin signed them at his new apartment. A studio in Gresham he shared with Sienna, her mother, and baby Melody. Cozy. The house was mine. The money was being repaid. Linda and her husband had taken out a home equity loan. The divorce would be final in 6 months. I walked out of that office into a Portland afternoon that smelled like rain and new beginnings. Marnie was waiting in her car. How do you feel? Free, I said, and I meant it. What now? Now? I smiled. Now I live my life, the one I should have been living all along. We drove to our favorite taco place, ordered too much food, and laughed about absolutely nothing important. And somewhere across town, Calvin was probably changing diapers and wondering how he'd gotten here. I didn't care anymore. That's how I knew I'd won. 6 months later, I was standing in my kitchen, drinking coffee and watching rain hit the windows, when the final divorce decree arrived in the mail. Official, legal, done. Bethany Mitchell, single woman, homeowner, survivor of the world's most predictable midlife crisis story. I should have felt something dramatic. Relief, maybe. Sadness. Anger. Instead, I felt calm. Like I'd been holding my breath for 9 years and finally remembered how to exhale. The house looked different now. I'd repainted the living room, that sage green Calvin hated. Bought new furniture, stuff I actually liked, not the investment pieces he'd insisted on. The bedroom had art on the walls now, my students' work. framed and displayed like the gallery it deserved to be. Turns out when you're not funding someone else's secret life, you can afford nice things. My phone buzzed. Marnie. Divorce final? As of 9 a.m. this morning. How do you feel? Like I just got paroled for a crime I didn't commit. She laughed. Drinks tonight? We're celebrating. Can't. Parent-teacher conferences until 7. Tomorrow then. No excuses. I smiled. Deal. The money situation sorted itself out better than expected. Linda and her husband paid back $45,000 immediately, and the remaining $15,000 came in monthly installments. Calvin picked up work as a contractor. Civil engineering firms wouldn't touch him after the fraud investigation, but construction companies were less picky. He made enough to cover child support for Melody and his share of the repayment. Barely. I'd heard through mutual friends, through Facebook stalking, that he and Sienna had split up 4 months after Melody was born. Turns out shared trauma and a screaming infant don't actually build a foundation for lasting love. Shocking. Sienna moved back in with her parents permanently. Calvin got an apartment in Beaverton with 2 roommates. They co-parented on a schedule organized by Linda, because neither of them could be trusted to coordinate anything without adult supervision. And me? I got my life back. Better than back. Forward. I started dating again in month 4. Nothing serious. A few coffee dates, one awkward dinner with a guy who spent the entire time talking about his CrossFit routine, one actually pleasant evening with a librarian named Marcus who made me laugh. It felt strange. Good strange. Like learning to use muscles I'd forgotten I had. Marcus and I went out 3 times before he asked, "So, what's your story?" "Everyone our age has one," I told him. The abbreviated version. Traffic light, pregnant girlfriend, divorce, the works. He whistled low. "That's intense. How are you so normal about it?" "Normal?" I laughed. I spent 2 months crying in my car between classes. I burned every photo of him I could find. I may have egged his apartment once. Hypothetically, can't prove anything. Hypothetically. But eventually you realize staying angry is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It just makes you sick. I shrugged. He lost everything that mattered. I kept everything that did. That's victory enough. Most people aren't that evolved. Most people didn't have a best friend who physically removed wine bottles from their hands and forced them into therapy. I smiled. Growth isn't optional when Marnie's involved. We didn't work out, Marcus and me. Different life goals. But we're still friends, which feels like progress. Being able to end something healthy without burning it all down. Turns out not everything has to end in disaster. Who knew? I ran into Calvin once, completely by accident. Target on a Saturday morning, because of course it was Target. He looked tired, older. He was buying diapers and baby formula, pushing a cart with one wobbly wheel. Saw me in the checkout line. We made eye contact. He looked away first. Good. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. What was there to say? Hope fatherhood's treating you well? Karma's a wonderful thing? Thanks for stealing my inheritance and teaching me that trust issues are actually just pattern recognition. I paid for my stuff, paint supplies and a new set of brushes, and left. In the parking lot, I realized I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just nothing. That's when I knew I was really done. My students asked me once why I didn't have photos of a husband or kids on my desk like other teachers. Because my life's not in pictures, I told them. It's in right now. This conversation, this moment, you guys. One girl, sharp kid, reminded me of myself at 16, said, "That's either really deep or really sad. Can't it be both?" I smiled. Best things usually are. The final payment came in last month. $15,000 transferred into my account with no fanfare. No note. Just numbers on a screen representing the end of a chapter I never wanted to write. I donated half to a women's shelter, kept the rest. Seemed fair. Marnie asked what I was going to do with the money. Maybe a trip, I said. Italy? I've always wanted to see Florence. Study the art in person instead of from textbooks. Alone? Why not? I do everything else alone now. That's not sad. No, I said honestly. It's freeing. Nobody to accommodate, nobody to check with, nobody to lie to me about where they're really going. She hugged me, tight. Look at you, all healed and cynical. I prefer experienced and realistic. Tomato, tomato. So here's what I learned from the great Calvin Parker disaster of my mid-30s. People lie. Sometimes the people you trust most lie the best. That's not a reflection of you. That's data about them. Money matters. Specifically, your money. Keep your inheritance separate. Check those bank statements. Knowledge is power, and ignorance is just expensive. Betrayal doesn't break you unless you let it. It bends you, reshapes you, forces you to rebuild with better materials, stronger foundation, higher standards. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just living well, moving forward, being genuinely happy while they're stuck dealing with consequences. Calvin lost his job, his marriage to me, his relationship with Sienna, and any chance of retirement before 70. I lost a liar, gained a house, and remembered what it feels like to like myself. Math says I won. Last week I painted something new for my classroom. Abstract piece, lots of blues and golds. Chaotic, but intentional. Beautiful in its messiness. A student asked what it represented. Phoenix rising, I said. Rebirth after destruction. Did you go through something destructive? She asked. I smiled. Thought about a red light on 3rd Street. A honk. 2 lives colliding and splitting. Everything that came after. Yeah, I said. But I got through it. And so will you. Whatever your it is. She nodded. Seemed to understand. Kids always do. They're more resilient than adults give them credit for. Maybe we all are. The divorce decree is in a folder now. Filed away. I don't look at it. Don't need to. I know what it says. I'm free. And honestly, that's the only status update that matters. Funny how 1 honk can end a marriage, 3 months can end a career, and 6 months can end a chapter you thought was your whole book. Turns out it was just the prologue. The real story? That starts now. And I'm writing it myself this time.